Maria, a 32-year-old working mother, was preparing lunch for her two young children when her phone rang with a call that would test her protective instincts and teach her valuable lessons about family emergency scams. The caller identified himself as Detective Johnson from the Metro Police Department and immediately began explaining that her teenage nephew had been arrested and needed immediate help to avoid serious legal consequences that could affect his future. Maria had always been close to her extended family, particularly her sister's son Alex, who was a good kid but sometimes made questionable decisions like many teenagers. As the responsible adult in the family who others often turned to for help during difficult situations, Maria was frequently the person that relatives called when they needed assistance or guidance with family problems. Detective Johnson spoke with apparent authority and used specific police terminology and legal language that made him sound completely legitimate and knowledgeable about law enforcement procedures. He created immediate urgency by explaining that Alex had been caught with illegal substances and needed bail money within the next few hours to avoid being transferred to adult court where he would face much more serious charges. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm calling because your nephew listed you as his emergency contact, and he's in serious trouble that could affect the rest of his life," Johnson said with apparent professional concern and urgency. He was arrested during a traffic stop where officers found marijuana in the vehicle, and because he's 17, he's right on the border between juvenile and adult court. If we can't process his bail today, he'll automatically be transferred to adult court tomorrow where he'll face felony charges instead of a simple misdemeanor. Detective Johnson provided detailed information about the arrest, including specific legal charges, bail amounts, and court procedures that sounded authentic and official. He explained that Alex was scared, embarrassed, and had specifically asked that his parents not be contacted because he was afraid of disappointing them and facing severe consequences at home. The caller created a compelling narrative about how Alex had been in the wrong place at the wrong time with friends who had put him in a dangerous situation. Johnson explained that while Alex hadn't been the one possessing the illegal substances, he was being charged as an accessory because he was present when the drugs were discovered during the traffic stop. "Your nephew is a good kid who made a bad choice about who to spend time with," Johnson continued with apparent understanding and sympathy. "He doesn't deserve to have his entire future ruined because of one mistake, but that's exactly what will happen if he gets processed through adult court. A felony conviction will follow him for the rest of his life, affecting his ability to get into college, find employment, and achieve the success that I know his family wants for him." Detective Johnson explained that the bail amount was $2,500, but because it was a weekend, the only way to process payment quickly enough to keep Alex in juvenile court was through a wire transfer or prepaid debit cards that could be processed immediately by the court's emergency bail system. The caller also mentioned that Alex was being held in a facility with adult offenders and was scared and vulnerable in an environment where he didn't belong. Johnson painted a picture of a frightened teenager who needed immediate help from a trusted family member who had the resources and willingness to help him during a crisis situation. "Mrs. Rodriguez, Alex specifically asked me to call you because he trusts you and knows that you care about his future," Johnson continued with apparent sincerity. "He's embarrassed about the situation and doesn't want his parents to know until he can tell them himself after we get this resolved. He knows you'll understand that good kids sometimes make mistakes, and he's hoping you can help him fix this before it destroys his future." The caller also referenced specific details about Maria's family that seemed to confirm his legitimacy, including Alex's school, his parents' names, and recent family events that made it seem like he had access to official information or had spoken extensively with Alex about his family's situation. Maria was immediately concerned about Alex's welfare and felt a strong obligation to help her nephew avoid serious legal consequences that could affect his entire future. The detailed information and apparent urgency made the situation seem completely real and pressing, and her protective instincts toward Alex overrode any skeptical thoughts about the legitimacy of the call. Maria agreed to help and asked for specific instructions about how to send the bail money quickly. Detective Johnson explained that she needed to purchase prepaid debit cards totaling $2,500 from a local store and then call him back with the card numbers and security codes so that the court could process the payment immediately. Johnson provided detailed instructions about which stores sold the appropriate cards, how to purchase them without attracting attention, and emphasized the importance of keeping the transaction confidential until Alex could be released and the legal situation resolved. He created additional urgency by mentioning that the court offices closed at 5 p.m. and that any delay could result in Alex being transferred to adult facilities. Maria immediately went to a nearby store and purchased the prepaid cards as instructed, feeling anxious about Alex's situation and determined to help her nephew avoid serious legal consequences. She called Detective Johnson back and provided the card information, believing that she was helping to secure Alex's release and protect his future. However, after completing the transaction, Maria began to have doubts about the situation and decided to call her sister to inform her about Alex's arrest and her decision to help with bail money. When she reached her sister, she was shocked to learn that Alex was actually at home doing homework and had been there all day. Maria realized with growing horror that she had been scammed by criminals who had used her love for her family and protective instincts against her. The scammers had researched her family, gathered personal information, and created a compelling emergency scenario designed to make her act quickly without verifying the information independently. Maria immediately contacted her bank and the prepaid card company to report the fraud and attempt to stop the transaction, but the money had already been accessed and withdrawn by the scammers. She also contacted local police to report the crime and provide information about the scammers' tactics and methods. The police detective who took her report explained that family emergency scams are unfortunately very common and sophisticated, with scammers using social media research, public records, and other sources to gather enough personal information to make their stories seem credible and urgent. The detective also explained that these scams specifically target family members who are known to be responsible, caring, and financially capable of helping during emergencies. Scammers often pose as police officers, lawyers, or court officials to create authority and urgency that prevents victims from taking time to verify the information. Maria learned that legitimate law enforcement agencies never ask for bail money to be paid through prepaid cards or wire transfers, and that all official court proceedings involve paperwork, official documentation, and established legal procedures that don't require immediate payment through unofficial channels. The experience taught Maria to always verify emergency situations by contacting family members directly, regardless of requests for confidentiality or claims about embarrassment. She learned that real emergencies can wait for verification, and that scammers create false urgency specifically to prevent victims from checking the facts independently. Maria now educates other family members about emergency scams and emphasizes the importance of family communication and verification protocols that can prevent scammers from exploiting family relationships and protective instincts. She continues to be a caring and supportive family member while protecting herself and others from fraud attempts that target family bonds and emotions. Thomas, a 67-year-old retired grandfather, was enjoying his morning coffee when he received a phone call that would test his love for his grandchildren and teach him important lessons about grandparent scams that exploit family relationships. The caller identified himself as Alex, claiming to be his college-aged grandson, and immediately began explaining that he was in serious trouble while traveling and needed immediate financial help to resolve a dangerous situation. Thomas had always been extremely close to his grandchildren and took great pride in being the kind of grandfather who was always available to help his family during difficult times. He had helped pay for college expenses, provided support during emergencies, and was known throughout the family as someone who would do anything to protect and help his grandchildren achieve their goals and dreams. The caller spoke with a voice that sounded similar to Alex's, though somewhat muffled and distorted, which he explained was due to injuries he had sustained in a car accident while visiting friends at another college. The caller claimed to be calling from a hospital emergency room where he was being treated for facial injuries that affected his speech and made it difficult for him to speak clearly. "Grandpa, I'm in really big trouble and I need your help," the caller said with apparent pain and distress in his voice. "I was in a car accident while visiting my friend at State University, and the other driver is claiming that I was drinking and driving. The police are saying they're going to arrest me for DUI, and I could go to jail and get kicked out of college if this doesn't get resolved quickly." The caller provided detailed information about the supposed accident, including specific legal charges, bail amounts, and court procedures that sounded realistic and urgent. He explained that he had been driving his friend's car when another vehicle ran a red light and caused the collision, but that the police were blaming him because they claimed to smell alcohol in the vehicle. The scammer created a compelling story about how Alex was scared, injured, and facing serious legal consequences that could destroy his college career and future prospects. He claimed that his parents were out of the country on vacation and couldn't be reached, and that he had specifically called his grandfather because he trusted him and knew that he would understand and help during this crisis. "Grandpa, I made a terrible mistake by having a few beers earlier in the day, even though I wasn't drunk when the accident happened," the caller continued with apparent shame and regret. "I know I disappointed you and the family, but I'm scared that my whole future is going to be ruined because of one bad decision." The lawyer here says that if I can post bail quickly, he can probably get the charges reduced to a traffic violation, but I need $3,000 right away. The caller also claimed that his injuries were preventing him from accessing his own bank account and that the accident had damaged his identification and credit cards. He explained that the only way to pay the bail quickly enough to avoid being transferred to county jail was through a wire transfer or money order that could be processed immediately by the court system. The scammer also referenced specific details about the family, Alex's college experiences, and recent family events that made the story seem authentic and demonstrated apparent insider knowledge about Thomas's grandson and family relationships. The caller mentioned specific friends, professors, and college activities that Alex had discussed with his grandfather during recent conversations. "Please don't tell Mom and Dad about this until I can tell them myself," the caller pleaded with apparent embarrassment and fear. "They're finally having a nice vacation together, and I don't want to ruin it by making them worry about me. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I can access my bank account, and I'll never put myself in this kind of situation again." The scammer created additional urgency by claiming that the court offices closed early on Fridays and that any delay in posting bail would result in Alex spending the weekend in jail with dangerous criminals who could hurt him because of his young age and college student appearance. Thomas was immediately concerned about Alex's safety and felt a strong obligation to help his grandson avoid serious legal consequences and potential danger in jail. The voice sounded like Alex, the details seemed authentic, and the urgency of the situation made Thomas feel that he needed to act quickly to protect his grandson. Thomas agreed to send the money and asked for specific instructions about how to wire the funds quickly. The caller provided detailed directions about which money transfer service to use, what information to include, and emphasized the importance of sending the money to the lawyer's office rather than directly to Alex to avoid any legal complications. The scammer gave Thomas specific information about the recipient, including a name and location for the money transfer, and stressed the importance of completing the transaction immediately to ensure that Alex could be released before the weekend. He also provided a phone number where Thomas could reach him to confirm that the money had been received and the bail had been posted. Thomas immediately went to a money transfer location and sent the $3,000 as instructed, feeling anxious about Alex's situation but determined to help his grandson avoid serious legal consequences and potential harm in jail. He completed the transaction and called the number provided to confirm that the money had been received. However, when Thomas called his daughter later that day to let her know about Alex's situation, he was shocked to learn that Alex was actually at his college campus attending classes and had never been in any accident or legal trouble. His daughter immediately contacted Alex, who confirmed that he was fine and had never called his grandfather or been involved in any emergency situation. Thomas realized with devastating clarity that he had been scammed by criminals who had researched his family, impersonated his grandson, and exploited his love and protective instincts to steal his money. The scammers had used publicly available information about his family to create a convincing emergency scenario that played on his fears about his grandson's safety and future. Thomas immediately contacted the money transfer company to report the fraud and attempt to stop the transaction, but the money had already been picked up by the scammers and could not be recovered. He also contacted local police and the FBI to report the crime and provide information about the scammers' methods and tactics. The authorities explained that grandparent scams are extremely common and sophisticated, with scammers specifically targeting older adults who are known to be financially capable and emotionally invested in their grandchildren's welfare. They use social media research, public records, and other sources to gather enough personal information to make their impersonations seem credible. The police also explained that these scams rely on creating emotional urgency and requests for secrecy that prevent victims from taking time to verify the emergency independently. Scammers specifically ask victims not to contact other family members because they know that verification would immediately expose the fraud. Thomas learned that legitimate emergencies involving arrest or legal trouble always involve official procedures, documentation, and established legal channels that don't require immediate payment through money transfers or unofficial methods. Real bail payments are made through official court systems and legal representatives, not through money transfer services. The experience taught Thomas to always verify emergency calls by contacting family members directly through known phone numbers, regardless of requests for secrecy or claims about embarrassment. He learned that real emergencies can wait for verification and that his grandchildren would understand the need to confirm unusual situations before providing financial assistance. Thomas now educates other grandparents about these scams and emphasizes the importance of establishing family verification protocols that can prevent scammers from exploiting family relationships and protective instincts. He continues to be a loving and supportive grandfather while protecting himself from fraud attempts that target the special bond between grandparents and grandchildren. Jennifer, a 41-year-old working mother, was reviewing her family's monthly bills when she received a phone call that would challenge her trust in legitimate businesses and teach her valuable lessons about family service scams. The caller identified herself as Lisa from Family Protection Services and immediately began explaining how they could help reduce her family's monthly expenses through a comprehensive review of insurance policies, utility contracts, and subscription services. Jennifer had been feeling overwhelmed by her family's rising monthly expenses, including insurance premiums, utility bills, streaming services, and various subscription plans that seemed to increase in cost every year. As the primary financial manager for her household, she was constantly looking for ways to reduce expenses and save money for her children's education and the family's future financial security. Lisa spoke with apparent expertise about family financial management and used specific terminology related to insurance, utility regulations, and consumer protection that made her sound like a legitimate financial consultant who specialized in helping families reduce their monthly expenses through careful analysis and strategic planning. Mrs. Patterson, I'm calling today because our consumer advocacy organization has identified your family as potentially overpaying for essential services by an average of $300 to $500 per month, Lisa said with apparent concern for Jennifer's financial welfare. We specialize in helping working families like yours identify overcharges, unnecessary fees, and better alternatives that can significantly reduce your monthly expenses without affecting the quality of services you receive. Lisa explained that Family Protection Services worked as an advocate for consumers who were being taken advantage of by large corporations that regularly increased prices, added hidden fees, and failed to inform customers about better plans or discounts that could save them substantial amounts of money over time. The caller provided detailed information about common overcharges in insurance premiums, utility bills, and subscription services, demonstrating apparent knowledge of industry practices and consumer protection regulations. She mentioned specific examples of families who had discovered they were paying for services they didn't need or weren't receiving the discounts they qualified for based on their usage patterns and family situation. Jennifer, most families are shocked when they discover how much money they're wasting on overpriced services and unnecessary fees, Lisa continued with apparent expertise and genuine concern. Insurance companies rarely tell customers about discounts they qualify for. Utility companies don't automatically apply the lowest rates available, and subscription services continue charging for premium features that families never use. Lisa offered to conduct a comprehensive review of Jennifer's family's monthly expenses and identify specific areas where they could save money through better plans, legitimate discounts, and elimination of unnecessary services. She claimed that their organization had relationships with major companies that allowed them to negotiate better rates and terms for families who qualified for their advocacy services. The caller also mentioned that Family Protection Services was recognized by consumer protection agencies and had helped thousands of families reduce their monthly expenses by an average of $400 per month through legitimate cost-saving strategies and better service agreements. We don't charge any upfront fees for our analysis, Lisa explained with apparent transparency and trustworthiness. We only get paid a small percentage of the money we save you, so we're only successful when we actually help reduce your family's expenses. If we can't find ways to save you at least $200 per month, our services are completely free and you owe us nothing. Lisa asked Jennifer if she would be willing to participate in a brief phone interview about her current services and monthly expenses so that they could identify potential savings opportunities. She offered to provide a preliminary analysis over the phone and promised that Jennifer would receive detailed written recommendations within 24 hours. Jennifer was attracted to the possibility of reducing her family's monthly expenses and felt that a free analysis couldn't hurt, especially since Lisa seemed knowledgeable about consumer protection and family financial management. The offer to only pay if they actually saved money seemed fair and risk-free. Jennifer agreed to participate in the phone interview and provided detailed information about her family's insurance policies, utility contracts, subscription services, and monthly expenses. Lisa asked specific questions about coverage amounts, usage patterns, and current payment amounts that seemed relevant to identifying cost-saving opportunities. During the interview, Lisa identified several areas where Jennifer's family appeared to be overpaying for services and explained specific strategies for reducing costs through better plans and legitimate discounts. She provided detailed explanations that seemed knowledgeable and helpful, and promised to send written recommendations within 24 hours. However, Lisa also explained that to implement the cost-saving strategies, Jennifer would need to provide temporary access to her accounts so that Family Protection Services could negotiate directly with service providers and make the necessary changes to reduce her monthly expenses. Lisa requested Jennifer's account numbers, passwords, and personal information, claiming that this access was necessary to contact service providers and negotiate better rates on Jennifer's behalf. She explained that many companies required account access to discuss changes and that Family Protection Services had established procedures for protecting client information during the negotiation process. Against her better judgment, Jennifer provided some of her account information, believing that Lisa was legitimate and that the potential savings were worth the risk. Lisa assured her that the information would be used only for legitimate cost-saving negotiations and that Jennifer would receive detailed documentation of all changes made to her accounts. Over the next few days, Jennifer began receiving unexpected bills and notices about changes to her services that she hadn't authorized. She discovered that her insurance policies had been canceled and replaced with inferior coverage. Her utility accounts had been switched to more expensive plans, and unauthorized charges had appeared on her credit cards. When Jennifer tried to contact Family Protection Services to demand an explanation and reversal of the unauthorized changes, she found that their phone numbers were disconnected and the company didn't exist. She realized that she had been scammed by criminals who had used her account information to make unauthorized changes that benefited them financially while harming her family's financial situation. Jennifer immediately contacted all of her service providers to report the unauthorized changes and request restoration of her original accounts and coverage. She also contacted her credit card companies to report fraudulent charges and request new account numbers to prevent further unauthorized access. The process of reversing the unauthorized changes was time-consuming and stressful, requiring multiple phone calls, written documentation, and several weeks to fully restore her family's original services and coverage. Some companies were helpful and understanding, while others required extensive proof that the changes had been unauthorized. Jennifer also reported the scam to her state's Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and local law enforcement. The authorities explained that family service scams are increasingly common and sophisticated, with scammers targeting busy parents who are looking for ways to reduce household expenses and may be vulnerable to offers that seem too good to be true. The consumer protection officials explained that legitimate financial advisors and consumer advocates never request account passwords or personal information over the phone, and that any real cost-saving services involve official contracts, documentation, and established business procedures that protect consumers' rights and privacy. Jennifer learned that legitimate companies that help consumers reduce expenses work through official channels, provide detailed written agreements, and never require access to personal accounts or passwords. Real consumer advocacy organizations are registered with appropriate agencies and have verifiable track records of helping families save money through legitimate methods. The experience taught Jennifer to be much more careful about sharing personal financial information and to thoroughly research any company before providing account details or authorizing changes to family services. She learned to verify all cost-saving offers through independent sources and never to provide passwords or account access to unsolicited callers. Jennifer now educates other parents about family service scams and emphasizes the importance of protecting personal financial information while still looking for legitimate ways to reduce household expenses. She continues to work on managing her family's budget, but now uses only established, verifiable methods and companies to optimize their monthly expenses. David, a 44-year-old father of three, was helping his oldest daughter with college preparation when he received a phone call that would test his commitment to his children's education and teach him valuable lessons about education funding scams. The caller identified himself as Mr. Stevens from the National Education Funding Association and immediately began explaining how they could help his family secure thousands of dollars in college grants and scholarships that most families never knew existed. David had been increasingly worried about the rising cost of college education and his ability to provide his children with the educational opportunities they deserved without creating crushing debt for the family. With three children who would be attending college within the next 6 years, he was constantly researching financial aid options, scholarship opportunities, and education funding strategies. Mr. Stevens spoke with apparent authority about education funding and used specific terminology related to federal financial aid, scholarship programs, and grant opportunities that made him sound like a legitimate education consultant who specialized in helping families access funding for higher education. Mr. Thompson, I'm calling today because our research indicates that your family may be eligible for education grants and scholarships totaling up to $25,000 that could significantly reduce your children's college costs, Stevens said with apparent expertise and genuine interest in helping David's family. Most families never discover these funding opportunities because they don't know where to look or how to navigate the complex application processes that can unlock substantial financial assistance. Stevens explained that the National Education Funding Association specialized in identifying and securing education funding for middle-class families who often earn too much to qualify for traditional need-based aid, but still struggled to afford the rapidly increasing costs of higher education without taking on substantial debt. The caller provided detailed information about various types of grants, scholarships, and funding programs that were available through government agencies, private foundations, and corporate sponsors, but were often overlooked by families who relied only on standard financial aid applications and basic scholarship searches. David, the average family leaves thousands of dollars in education funding on the table every year because they don't understand the system or know how to access programs that are specifically designed to help families like yours, Stevens continued with apparent insider knowledge. We have relationships with funding organizations and access to databases that contain scholarship opportunities that aren't advertised to the general public. Stevens mentioned specific scholarship programs, grant opportunities, and funding sources that sounded legitimate and relevant to David's family situation. He referenced federal education programs, state funding initiatives, and private foundation grants that demonstrated apparent knowledge of the education funding landscape. The caller also claimed that the National Education Funding Association had helped thousands of families secure education funding and provided specific examples of families who had received substantial grants and scholarships that had dramatically reduced their college costs and eliminated the need for student loans. We've helped families just like yours secure funding that paid for entire college educations, Stevens explained with apparent success stories and proven results. Last month alone, we helped a family in your area secure $18,000 in grants for their daughter's first year of college, and another family received $22,000 in scholarship funding that will cover most of their son's four-year degree. Stevens offered to conduct a free eligibility assessment for David's family to identify specific funding opportunities that match their financial situation, academic achievements, and demographic characteristics. He claimed that this assessment would reveal funding sources that David would never find through standard scholarship searches or financial aid applications. The caller also mentioned that their services included professional assistance with applications, essays, and documentation required for various funding programs, significantly increasing the chances of success compared to families who tried to navigate the process independently. Mr. Thompson, we only succeed when you succeed, Stevens explained with apparent alignment of interests. We charge a one-time processing fee of $497 to cover our research, application assistance, and administrative costs, but this fee is only charged after we identify at least $5,000 in funding opportunities that your family qualifies for. If we can't find substantial funding for your children, You don't pay anything. Stevens created urgency by explaining that many scholarship and grant programs had early deadlines and limited funding that was awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. He claimed that families who waited too long often missed out on funding opportunities that could have dramatically reduced their college costs. David was attracted to the possibility of securing substantial education funding for his children and felt that the potential benefits far outweighed the relatively small processing fee. The guarantee that he would only pay if they found significant funding seemed fair and reduced the risk of the investment. David agreed to participate in the eligibility assessment and provided detailed information about his family's financial situation, his children's academic achievements, and their college plans. Stevens conducted what seemed like a thorough analysis and claimed to identify several funding opportunities that David's family qualified for. Stevens then requested payment of the processing fee and explained that David would receive detailed application materials and professional assistance with securing the identified funding opportunities. He provided specific instructions for making payment and promised that David would receive comprehensive funding information within 48 hours. David paid the processing fee using his credit card, believing that he was making a smart investment in his children's education that would pay for itself many times over through the funding opportunities that Stevens had identified. However, the materials that David received were generic scholarship listings and basic financial aid information that was freely available online and provided no value beyond what he could have found through simple internet searches. The exclusive funding opportunities were either non-existent, expired, or had qualification requirements that his family didn't meet. When David tried to contact the National Education Funding Association to request a refund based on their guarantee, he found that their phone numbers were disconnected and the company had disappeared. He realized that he had been scammed by criminals who were exploiting parents' concerns about education costs and their desire to provide opportunities for their children. David immediately contacted his credit card company to dispute the fraudulent charge and report the deceptive practices. The credit card company was helpful and reversed the charge while investigating the fraudulent merchant and their deceptive marketing practices. David also reported the scam to his state's Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Better Business Bureau. The authorities explained that education funding scams are increasingly common and target parents who are worried about college costs and may be vulnerable to promises of easy access to funding opportunities. The consumer protection officials explained that legitimate scholarship and grant opportunities are available through official sources like colleges, government agencies, and established scholarship foundations, but that no legitimate organization charges fees to help families find or apply for education funding. David learned that real scholarship and grant opportunities are always free to apply for, and that any organization that charges fees to help find funding is likely fraudulent. Legitimate education consultants provide services through transparent contracts and verifiable credentials, not through unsolicited phone calls and high-pressure sales tactics. The experience taught David to research education funding opportunities through official sources and to be skeptical of any organization that charges fees for scholarship searches or claims to have access to exclusive funding opportunities. He learned that legitimate financial aid and scholarship programs are available through established, verifiable sources that don't require upfront payments. David now helps other parents navigate legitimate education funding options and warns them about education funding scams that exploit parental concerns about college costs. He continues to work on securing funding for his children's education, but now uses only official, verified sources and never pays fees for scholarship searches or funding assistance. Sandra, a 38-year-old single mother, was struggling to manage her household budget when she received a phone call that would test her desire to provide for her family and teach her important lessons about debt relief scams that target families facing financial difficulties. The caller identified himself as Robert Martinez from the Family Debt Relief Center and immediately began explaining how they could help her eliminate her credit card debt and reduce her monthly payments through government programs designed to help struggling families. Sandra had been feeling overwhelmed by her family's financial situation, including credit card debt that had accumulated during a period of unemployment and medical expenses related to her daughter's chronic health condition. As a single mother working two part-time jobs, she was constantly struggling to make minimum payments while trying to provide for her children's basic needs and maintain their quality of life. Robert Martinez spoke with apparent expertise about debt relief and financial assistance programs, using specific terminology related to federal debt forgiveness programs, consumer protection laws, and family financial assistance that made him sound like a legitimate debt counselor who specialized in helping families escape overwhelming debt burdens. Ms. Johnson, I'm calling today because our records indicate that your family may qualify for federal debt relief programs that could eliminate up to 80% of your credit card debt and significantly reduce your monthly payments. Martinez said with apparent knowledge of Sandra's financial situation and genuine concern for her family's welfare. These programs are specifically designed to help single mothers and families who are struggling with debt through no fault of their own. Martinez explained that the Family Debt Relief Center worked with government agencies and creditors to negotiate debt reductions and payment plans that were specifically available to families facing financial hardship due to medical expenses, job loss, or other circumstances beyond their control. The caller provided detailed information about federal debt forgiveness programs, consumer protection laws, and family assistance initiatives that sounded legitimate and relevant to Sandra's situation. He mentioned specific government agencies and legal provisions that demonstrated apparent knowledge of the debt relief landscape and family financial assistance programs. Sandra, you're not alone in this situation, and you don't have to continue struggling with debt that keeps growing despite your best efforts to pay it down, Martinez continued with apparent understanding and empathy. The government has created these programs specifically to help hardworking families like yours get a fresh start and achieve financial stability without the burden of overwhelming debt. Martinez claimed that the Family Debt Relief Center had helped thousands of families reduce their debt by an average of 70% and achieve manageable payment plans that allowed them to focus on providing for their children rather than struggling with minimum payments that never reduced their principal balances. The caller also mentioned that their services were backed by federal consumer protection laws and that they had established relationships with major credit card companies that allowed them to negotiate better terms than families could achieve independently through traditional debt consolidation or payment plan requests. We've helped families just like yours eliminate tens of thousands of dollars in debt and achieve financial freedom, Martinez explained with apparent success stories and proven results. Last month, we helped a single mother in your area eliminate $18,000 in credit card debt and reduce her monthly payments from $800 to $150, allowing her to save money for her children's future instead of paying interest to credit card companies. Martinez offered to conduct a free debt analysis for Sandra's family to identify specific debt relief programs that matched her financial situation and family circumstances. He claimed that this analysis would reveal options that Sandra would never discover through traditional debt counseling or credit counseling services. The caller also explained that their services included professional negotiation with creditors, legal protection against debt collection harassment, and ongoing financial counseling to help families maintain their financial stability after achieving debt relief. Ms. Johnson, we understand that you've probably been contacted by other debt relief companies, but we're different because we work specifically with government programs that are designed to help families, not just individuals. Martinez explained with apparent specialization and expertise. Our fee is only $500, which is paid through your reduced monthly payments, so you don't need any money up front. If we can't reduce your debt by at least $5,000, our services are completely free. Martinez created urgency by explaining that government debt relief programs had limited funding and that families who qualified needed to act quickly to secure their benefits before the programs reached capacity or funding was reduced due to budget constraints. Sandra was attracted to the possibility of reducing her debt burden and achieving financial stability for her family. The references to government programs and consumer protection laws made the offer seem legitimate, and the guarantee that she would only pay if they achieved substantial debt reduction seemed fair and risk-free. Sandra agreed to participate in the debt analysis and provided detailed information about her credit card debt, monthly income, and family expenses. Martinez conducted what seemed like a thorough assessment and claimed to identify several debt relief programs that Sandra's family qualified for based on her status as a single mother facing financial hardship. Martinez then explained that to begin the debt relief process, Sandra needed to stop making payments to her creditors and redirect those payments to the Family Debt Relief Center, which would hold the money in a special account while they negotiated with creditors on her behalf. He requested Sandra's bank account information to set up automatic payments and explained that this process was necessary to demonstrate to creditors that she was serious about resolving her debt through their program rather than continuing to make minimum payments that would never eliminate her balances. Against her better judgment, Sandra provided her banking information and authorized the Family Debt Relief Center to begin the debt relief process. Martinez assured her that she would receive regular updates about negotiations with her creditors and that her debt would be significantly reduced within 6 months. However, over the next several months, Sandra's financial situation deteriorated dramatically. Her creditors continued to demand payments and began calling more frequently because she had stopped making her regular payments as instructed. Her credit score dropped significantly, and she received notices about potential legal action from credit card companies. When Sandra tried to contact the Family Debt Relief Center to inquire about the progress of her debt negotiations, she found that their phone numbers were disconnected and the company had disappeared. She realized that she had been scammed by criminals who had taken her money while providing no legitimate debt relief services. Sandra discovered that the money she had been sending to the Family Debt Relief Center had not been held in any special account for debt negotiations, but had simply been stolen by the scammers. Her debt situation was now worse than before, with additional late fees, higher interest rates, and damaged credit that would affect her family's financial future for years. Sandra immediately contacted her bank to stop any automatic payments to the fraudulent company and began working with legitimate credit counseling services to address her debt situation through proper channels. She also contacted her creditors to explain the situation and attempt to restore her original payment arrangements. Sandra reported the scam to her state's Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and local law enforcement. The authorities explained that debt relief scams are extremely common and specifically target families facing financial difficulties who may be desperate for solutions and vulnerable to promises of easy debt elimination. The consumer protection officials explained that legitimate debt relief involves working directly with creditors through established legal procedures, and that no legitimate organization asks clients to stop making payments to creditors or provides upfront guarantees about specific debt reduction amounts. Sandra learned that real debt relief requires time, legitimate negotiation, and often involves credit score impacts that are clearly explained upfront. Legitimate debt counseling services are typically nonprofit organizations that provide transparent information about all options and consequences before clients make decisions. The experience taught Sandra to research debt relief options through official sources and to be skeptical of any organization that makes unrealistic promises about debt elimination or asks for upfront fees. She learned that legitimate financial assistance is available through established nonprofit organizations and official government programs that don't require payments to access their services. Sandra now works with legitimate credit counseling services and has developed a realistic plan for managing her debt while protecting her family from further financial harm. She educates other single parents about debt relief scams and emphasizes the importance of working only with verified nonprofit organizations that provide transparent debt counseling services. Michelle, a 29-year-old stay-at-home mother, was looking for ways to contribute to her family's income when she received a phone call that would test her desire to balance work and family life while teaching her valuable lessons about work-from-home scams that target parents. The caller identified herself as Karen Williams from Home Business Solutions and immediately began explaining how Michelle could earn substantial income working from home while still being available for her young children. Michelle had been feeling frustrated about her family's tight budget and her inability to contribute financially while staying home to care for her 2 preschool-aged children. She had been researching legitimate work-from-home opportunities, but found that most required skills she didn't have or schedules that wouldn't accommodate her children's needs and family responsibilities. Karen Williams spoke with apparent understanding of the challenges facing stay-at-home parents and used specific terminology related to flexible employment, family-friendly business opportunities, and home-based income generation that made her sound like a legitimate business consultant who specialized in helping parents achieve work-life balance. Michelle, I'm calling today because our company is expanding and we're specifically looking for responsible mothers like yourself who want to earn income while still being available for their families, Williams said with apparent appreciation for Michelle's situation and values. We understand that traditional employment doesn't work for every family, and we've developed business opportunities that allow parents to earn substantial income on their own schedules from the comfort of their homes. Williams explained that Home Business Solutions partnered with major corporations to provide customer service, data entry, and administrative support services that could be performed remotely by qualified individuals who demonstrated reliability, professionalism, and strong communication skills. The caller provided detailed information about various types of work-from-home opportunities, including customer service positions, online data processing, and virtual assistant services that offered flexible schedules and competitive compensation rates that could provide significant income for families while allowing parents to maintain their primary focus on childcare. Michelle, we're not talking about envelope stuffing or assembly work. These are legitimate professional positions with established companies that pay $15 to $25 per hour and allow you to work as many or as few hours as your family schedule permits. Williams continued with apparent legitimacy and professional opportunities. Many of our participants earn $500 to $1,500 per week working part-time hours that fit around their children's schedules and family commitments. Williams claimed that Home Business Solutions provided comprehensive training, ongoing support, and direct connections with companies that were actively seeking remote workers for various professional positions. She mentioned specific well-known corporations that supposedly partnered with their program to find qualified remote employees. The caller also referenced the growing trend toward remote work and the increasing number of companies that were offering work-from-home positions to reduce overhead costs while accessing talented employees who preferred flexible work arrangements. We've helped thousands of parents achieve financial independence while maintaining their family priorities, Williams explained with apparent success stories and proven results. Just last month, we helped a mother in your area secure a customer service position that allows her to earn $800 per week working 20 hours from home while her children are at school and during nap time. Williams offered to provide Michelle with detailed information about available positions and comprehensive training materials that would prepare her for immediate employment with their corporate partners. She claimed that the training was conducted entirely online and could be completed at Michelle's own pace around her family schedule. The caller also explained that their services included resume preparation, interview coaching, and ongoing career support to help participants succeed in their chosen positions and advance to higher-paying opportunities over time. Michelle, we believe so strongly in our program that we're willing to guarantee your success, Williams explained with apparent confidence and commitment. We charge a one-time training and placement fee of $297, but if you don't secure a position earning at least $500 per week within 60 days, we'll refund your entire fee. You literally have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Williams created urgency by explaining that they were only accepting a limited number of participants for their current training session and that positions with their corporate partners were filling quickly due to high demand for qualified remote workers. Michelle was attracted to the possibility of earning income while maintaining her role as a stay-at-home mother and felt that the training fee was a reasonable investment considering the potential income opportunities. The guarantee that she would secure employment or receive a refund seemed to eliminate the risk of the investment. Michelle agreed to participate in the program and provided her credit card information to pay the training fee. Williams was very encouraging and supportive, assuring Michelle that she was making a smart decision that would benefit her entire family and provide the financial flexibility she was seeking. Williams promised that Michelle would receive training materials within 24 hours and that she would be contacted by a career counselor within 48 hours to begin the job placement process. She provided contact information and assured Michelle that support was available whenever she had questions or needed assistance. However, the training materials that Michelle received were generic work-from-home guides and basic resume templates that provided no value beyond information that was freely available online. The comprehensive training consisted of simple worksheets and outdated job search advice that had no connection to specific employment opportunities. When Michelle tried to contact the career counselor to begin the job placement process, she found that the phone numbers provided either didn't work or connected to generic voicemail systems that never returned calls. The specific employment opportunities that Williams had described either didn't exist or had qualification requirements that weren't mentioned during the initial call. Michelle realized that she had been scammed by criminals who were exploiting stay-at-home parents' desire to contribute financially to their families while maintaining their childcare responsibilities. The guarantee was meaningless because the company had disappeared and provided no legitimate services. Michelle immediately contacted her credit card company to dispute the fraudulent charge and report the deceptive practices. The credit card company was understanding and reversed the charge while investigating the fraudulent merchant and their misleading marketing tactics. Michelle also reported the scam to her state's Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Better Business Bureau. The authorities explained that work-from-home scams specifically target parents who are looking for flexible employment opportunities and may be vulnerable to promises of easy income that accommodates family responsibilities. The consumer protection officials explained that legitimate work-from-home opportunities never require upfront fees for training or job placement, and that real remote positions are offered through established employment processes that include proper interviews, background checks, and official employment documentation. Michelle learned that authentic remote work opportunities are available through legitimate job search websites, established companies' career pages, and verified employment agencies that don't charge fees to job seekers. Real employers pay employees, not the other way around. The experience taught Michelle to research work-from-home opportunities through official employment channels and to be skeptical of any opportunity that requires upfront payments or makes unrealistic income promises. She learned that legitimate remote work requires real skills, professional qualifications, and established employment relationships. Michelle now helps other stay-at-home parents identify legitimate work-from-home opportunities and warns them about employment scams that exploit parental desires for flexible income. She continues to look for authentic ways to contribute to her family's income, but now uses only verified employment sources and never pays fees for job opportunities. Robert, a 52-year-old father of two teenagers, was researching ways to save for his children's college education when he received a phone call that would test his commitment to financial planning and teach him valuable lessons about investment scams that target family savings goals. The caller identified himself as James Crawford from Secure Family Investments and immediately began explaining how Robert could earn guaranteed high returns on his college savings through exclusive investment opportunities that weren't available to the general public. Robert had been increasingly concerned about having adequate funds for his children's college education, especially considering the rapidly rising costs of higher education and the limited returns he was earning on traditional savings accounts and conservative investment options. He had been researching various investment strategies, but was overwhelmed by the complexity of financial markets and uncertain about the best approaches for protecting and growing his family's education savings. James Crawford spoke with apparent expertise about investment strategies and financial planning, using specific terminology related to college savings plans, tax-advantaged investments, and portfolio management that made him sound like a legitimate financial advisor who specialized in helping families achieve their educational funding goals. Mr. Williams, I'm calling today because our firm has identified you as a responsible father who is actively planning for his children's future. And we have investment opportunities that could dramatically increase your college savings in a relatively short period, Crawford said with apparent knowledge of Robert's situation and professional respect for his financial planning efforts. We specialize in helping families like yours achieve their educational funding goals through carefully selected investment opportunities that provide much higher returns than traditional savings methods. Crawford explained that Secure Family Investments worked with institutional investors and private equity firms to provide qualified families with access to exclusive investment opportunities that typically required much larger minimum investments, but were being made available to individual families through their specialized program. The caller provided detailed information about various investment strategies, including real estate development projects, technology startup investments, and international commodity trading programs that offered guaranteed returns of 12 to 18% annually compared to the 2 to 3% that Robert was currently earning on his college savings. Robert, traditional savings accounts and conservative investments will never provide the growth you need to keep up with college cost inflation. Crawford continued with apparent mathematical analysis and financial expertise. At current rates, you'll need to save almost twice as much as you're currently planning just to maintain purchasing power. But our investment opportunities can help you achieve your college funding goals with much smaller monthly contributions. Crawford claimed that Secure Family Investments had helped thousands of families achieve their educational funding goals through strategic investments and provided specific examples of families who had doubled or tripled their college savings through their exclusive investment programs. The caller also mentioned that their investment opportunities were backed by insurance policies and legal guarantees that protected investors' principal while ensuring the promised returns, making them much safer than traditional stock market investments that could lose value during market downturns. We've helped families just like yours turn modest college savings into substantial education funds, Crawford explained with apparent success stories and proven results. Last year, we helped a family in your area grow their $25,000 college fund to over $60,000 through strategic investments, giving them enough money to send both of their children to their dream colleges without student loans. Crawford offered to provide Robert with detailed information about specific investment opportunities that matched his college savings timeline and risk tolerance. He claimed that families who qualified for their program could begin earning guaranteed returns immediately while maintaining complete control over their investments. The caller also explained that their services included ongoing portfolio management, tax planning assistance, and educational funding strategies that would optimize Robert's savings for maximum growth and tax efficiency. Mr. Williams, we understand that your children's education is your top priority, and we're committed to helping you achieve your goals, Crawford explained with apparent alignment of interests and family values. Our minimum investment is $10,000, but this gives you access to opportunities that could grow to $25,000 or more by the time your oldest child starts college. We're so confident in our program that we guarantee your principal and provide a minimum return of 12% annually. Crawford created urgency by explaining that their exclusive investment opportunities had limited capacity and that families who qualified needed to act quickly to secure their positions before the opportunities were fully subscribed by other investors. Robert was attracted to the possibility of significantly increasing his college savings and felt that the guaranteed returns and principal protection made the investment much safer than traditional market-based investments. The specific examples and apparent expertise made the opportunities seem legitimate and well-suited to his family's needs. Robert agreed to invest $15,000 of his college savings and provided the necessary financial information to transfer funds to secure family investments. Crawford was very professional and reassuring, providing detailed documentation and promising that Robert would receive regular updates about his investment performance and growth. Crawford also promised that Robert would receive quarterly statements showing his investment growth and that he could access his funds at any time if his family's situation changed or if he needed money for educational expenses earlier than planned. However, over the next several months, Robert received no statements or updates about his investment performance despite Crawford's specific promises to provide regular communication. When Robert tried to contact Secure Family Investments to inquire about his account and request performance information, he found that their phone numbers were disconnected and the company had disappeared. Robert realized that he had been scammed by criminals who had stolen his college savings through fake investment opportunities that never existed. The guaranteed returns and principal protection were completely fraudulent, and his $15,000 investment was simply stolen by the scammers. Robert immediately contacted his bank and the investment transfer company to report the fraud and attempt to recover his funds, but the money had been quickly moved to overseas accounts and could not be recovered. He also contacted the Securities and Exchange Commission and state securities regulators to report the investment fraud. The authorities explained that investment scams targeting college savings are increasingly common and sophisticated, with scammers specifically targeting parents who are worried about education costs and may be attracted to promises of guaranteed high returns that seem to solve their funding challenges. The securities regulators explained that legitimate investments never guarantee specific returns, especially returns that are significantly higher than market rates, and that all real investment opportunities involve risk that is clearly disclosed to investors through official documentation and regulatory filings. Robert learned that authentic investment advisors are licensed and registered with appropriate regulatory agencies, and that all legitimate investment opportunities can be verified through official sources before investors commit funds. The experience taught Robert to research investment opportunities through official regulatory sources and to be skeptical of any investment that promises guaranteed returns or claims to be exclusive opportunities not available through established investment channels. Robert now works with a legitimate, licensed financial advisor to develop a realistic college savings strategy and warns other parents about investment scams that exploit concerns about education funding. He continues to save for his children's education, but now uses only verified, regulated investment options that provide transparent information about risks and potential returns. Lisa, a 35-year-old working mother, was managing her family's healthcare expenses when she received a phone call that would test her concern for her family's medical needs and teach her valuable lessons about healthcare scams that target family medical expenses. The caller identified herself as Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the Family Medical Assistance Foundation and immediately began explaining how Lisa's family could receive significant reductions in medical bills and prescription costs through federal programs designed to help working families afford healthcare. Lisa had been struggling with her family's rising healthcare costs, including high deductibles, prescription expenses, and medical bills that weren't fully covered by their insurance plan. Despite having health insurance through her employer, her family still faced substantial out-of-pocket expenses that strained their monthly budget and forced them to delay or avoid some medical care. Dr. Mitchell spoke with apparent medical knowledge and used specific terminology related to healthcare regulations, insurance policies, and federal assistance programs that made her sound like a legitimate healthcare advocate who specialized in helping families navigate complex medical billing and insurance systems. Mrs. Anderson, I'm calling today because our foundation has identified your family as potentially eligible for federal medical assistance programs that could reduce your healthcare costs by 60 to 80% and provide significant savings on prescription medications, Mitchell said with apparent medical authority and genuine concern for Lisa's family's healthcare needs. These programs are specifically designed to help working families who have insurance but still face substantial medical expenses that create financial hardship. Mitchell explained that the Family Medical Assistance Foundation worked with federal agencies, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical manufacturers to help families access discounts, rebates, and assistance programs that could dramatically reduce their medical expenses and prescription costs. The caller provided detailed information about various healthcare assistance programs, including prescription drug discount programs, medical bill reduction services, and insurance premium assistance that sounded legitimate and relevant to Lisa's family situation. Lisa, most families don't realize that there are federal programs and pharmaceutical company assistance plans that can reduce medical costs regardless of income level. Mitchell continued with apparent insider knowledge of healthcare systems. Insurance companies and medical providers rarely inform patients about these programs because they benefit financially when families pay full prices for medical services and medications. Mitchell claimed that the Family Medical Assistance Foundation had helped thousands of families reduce their healthcare costs and provided specific examples of families who had saved substantial amounts on medical bills and prescription expenses through their assistance programs. The caller also mentioned that their services included reviewing medical bills for errors and overcharges, negotiating payment plans with healthcare providers, and helping families access prescription assistance programs offered by pharmaceutical companies. We've helped families just like yours reduce their annual medical expenses by thousands of dollars, Mitchell explained with apparent success stories and proven results. Last month, we helped a family in your area reduce their prescription costs from $400 per month to $75 per month through manufacturer assistance programs, and we negotiated an $8,000 medical bill down to $2,500 through proper insurance appeals and payment plan negotiations. Mitchell offered to conduct a comprehensive review of Lisa's family's medical expenses and insurance coverage to identify specific assistance programs and cost reduction opportunities that match their healthcare needs and financial situation. The caller also explained that their services included ongoing advocacy with insurance companies, assistance with insurance appeals and claims disputes, and help accessing clinical trials and research programs that could provide advanced medical care at reduced costs. Mrs. Anderson, we understand that healthcare costs are overwhelming for most families, and we're committed to helping you get the medical care your family needs without creating financial hardship. Mitchell explained with apparent compassion and professional expertise. Our fee is $395, which covers a complete review of your family's medical expenses and ongoing assistance for one full year. Most families save that amount in the first month alone through the programs we help them access. Mitchell created urgency by explaining that many assistance programs had enrollment deadlines and limited funding that was available on a first-come, first-served basis, and that families who qualified needed to act quickly to secure their benefits. Lisa was attracted to the possibility of reducing her family's healthcare costs and felt that the potential savings far exceeded the service fee. The medical terminology and apparent expertise made the foundation seem legitimate and aligned with her family's healthcare needs. Lisa agreed to use their services and provided her credit card information to pay the fee. Mitchell was very professional and reassuring, promising that Lisa would receive a comprehensive analysis of her family's healthcare costs and specific information about assistance programs they qualified for. Mitchell also promised that Lisa would receive ongoing support with insurance issues, prescription assistance applications, and medical bill negotiations throughout the year, potentially saving her family thousands of dollars in healthcare expenses. However, the analysis that Lisa received was generic information about publicly available prescription assistance programs and basic tips for reducing medical costs that provided no value beyond what she could have found through simple internet searches or by contacting her insurance company directly. When Lisa tried to contact the Family Medical Assistance Foundation to request the promised ongoing assistance with insurance issues and prescription programs, she found that their phone numbers were disconnected and the foundation didn't exist. She realized that she had been scammed by criminals who were exploiting families' concerns about healthcare costs. Lisa immediately contacted her credit card company to dispute the fraudulent charge and report the deceptive practices. The credit card company was understanding and reversed the charge while investigating the fraudulent merchant and their misleading healthcare assistance claims. Lisa also reported the scam to her state's Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and her state's insurance commissioner. The authorities explained that healthcare assistance scams are increasingly common and target families who are struggling with medical expenses and may be vulnerable to promises of easy cost reductions. The consumer protection officials explained that legitimate healthcare assistance programs are available through official sources like pharmaceutical companies, government agencies, and established nonprofit organizations, but that no legitimate organization charges fees to help families access these programs. Lisa learned that real prescription assistance programs are offered directly by drug manufacturers and can be accessed for free through their websites or by contacting them directly. Legitimate medical bill assistance is available through hospital financial assistance programs and nonprofit organizations that don't charge fees for their services. The experience taught Lisa to research healthcare assistance through official sources and to be skeptical of any organization that charges fees to help access medical cost reduction programs. She learned that legitimate healthcare assistance is available through established channels that provide transparent information about eligibility and benefits. Lisa now helps other families navigate legitimate healthcare assistance programs and warns them about medical assistance scams that exploit concerns about healthcare costs. She continues to work on managing her family's medical expenses, but now uses only verified, official sources for assistance and never pays fees to access healthcare cost reduction programs. These stories show us that family-targeted scams are becoming more sophisticated and emotionally manipulative, exploiting our deepest concerns about protecting and providing for our loved ones. Always verify emergency situations by contacting family members directly, research any financial or service offers through independent sources, and remember that legitimate organizations never pressure families to act immediately or pay upfront fees for assistance. Trust your instincts, take time to verify unusual requests, and protect your family by staying informed about common scam tactics while maintaining the loving relationships that make families strong.